Hello everybody and welcome to a brand new video series by me, Sherman. This is ESO Let's Talk, or Let's Talk ESO. Actually, it's Let's Talk ESO. And we're here to talk about the game. I'm here to talk to you guys and explain to you guys some of the rules of the game that you might have misconception of and a misunderstanding of. One of the things that I want to talk about first is I want to talk about Delty and Woolery's new tank video. If you guys haven't seen it, go check it out. If you're a tank in this game, I advise you to check it out because these guys' advice is sound. They know what they're talking about because they do have a lot of, they have a lot of more experience than a lot of other players, and they do the number crunching that a lot of people don't do. And it's not that they don't that they do it to make the superior builds. They just want you to be able to play the game and have a greater understanding of how the game works. And that's why I'm advising you to go check it out. Now, I do agree with them and I disagree with them. And because of that, I have to say certain things. And I don't do this to attack them. I do this because I don't know if it's like the reasoning behind it is because they don't want this game to end up like Guild Wars 2 with the aspects of the DPS gameplay or anything like that. But you can be a tank and do DPS. The game rules allow it. And because of that, we have to treat this game as a non-traditional MMO. Now, that's all I want to say about that. But their advice is sound. I love the video, by the way, guys. If you guys can do another one, or you guys aren't doing another one, I hope, because that's a cool collaboration. Because you're taking two of the top builders in the game and putting them together and putting their brains together, and it's like putting Isaac Newton and Einstein in the same room, you know. You get this great collaboration. And it's not that I'm treating them that way. They just know their stuff when it comes to like what they know about the game. And that's why I advise you guys to go check it out. I would advise you to go check out any YouTuber out there with any of their builds, because a lot of people out there offer different types of builds, and they offer lots of different types of information. The problem with with Elder Scrolls right now, and has always been, is everyone has this traditional mindset. If you guys haven't played a traditional MMO, had a lot of restrictions on how a character could play their class, because the game defined the class to play a certain way, and it was because of the rules the game was built on, and you had to follow those rules. You had no deviation. And now, with the way that these games have streamlined their mechanics, there is no deviation at all. I mean, you pick your class and you pick the path of the class, basically, and you're stuck with it, unless the game allows you to change it. Anyone here played, what was it, Rift, the game Rift? The game Rift was a really great game because it allowed you flexibility within your class, and your class could literally do anything. Like, if you chose to be a mage, your mage could be a tank, a healer, and DPS. Or DPS. It was based on how you decided to play them. Because it had subclasses, and the subclasses each had their own play style, and you could mix and match and come up with a really cool combination of build to come up with something. A lot of the times people call it minimaxing. And people minimax their builds to be far superior to anyone else's. It doesn't mean that you can't play the game with a different build. It's just that a lot of people require you to play by their standards because it's the best thing for the game, or it's the best thing to have to play the game with. It doesn't mean that you can't play it any other way. It's just that to them, they require it because it offers so many more advantages. Like Warhorn, for example. It offers the group a lot of advantages because it gives everyone 10% extra, stuff or attributes to allow them to run the dungeons smoother or to run a trial smoother, and then it gives you the extra damage potential. My only problem with that, and it is a problem, because see, I can't get it. I can, but it's going to take me a really, really long time. And I'll tell you why I can't. I have a condition. It's called tremors. If you guys don't know what tremors is, imagine Wile E. Coyote on his earthquake pills. Imagine a chihuahua that shakes all the time. I'm like that. But the thing is that the more excited I become, the more shakier I become. That means if I get excited, frustrated, it depends on the emotion, my body reacts to it. And it just does that. And then I have something that's very similar, included with it, it's similar to Tourette's. It causes me to stutter at times. That's why if you hear me say a word twice, I'm actually trying not to. It's just my body can't control, or my brain can't control me not doing that. It's part of my tremors. And on top of that, I have something else. It's like Tourette's with it. There's just times where I twitch because of it. It's uncontrolled. I don't notice when I do it. It just happens. Like, if you ever see me when I'm doing something in a video and I'm running along and all of a sudden the screen goes like that, it's because my hand just had a Tourette syndrome kind of thing. And it's just one of the things that comes with tremors. So it does make it a little bit harder for me to play certain content because of the emotional state that it puts me in. I'll just put it that way. If it puts me in an excited emotional state, I tend to vibrate a little bit more. The more excited or things I become, it depends on how much I shake. Now, if I'm really focused, I don't shake at all. I can keep a steady gameplay, but I have to be focused. And that means I can't talk and do at the same time. That's why I can't show you guys videos a lot of the time where I'm in certain environments and talking at the same time, is because I can't do that. I have to record it separately and then record my voice over it. And that can be kind of, kind of thing. But I try to do my best. And I deal with the situation because I have to live with it. I have no other choice. So let's talk about the traditional MMO sense. So in a traditional MMO, like I was saying, you're restricted. So if you play a tank in a traditional MMO, your character is restricted to heavy armor and sword and board. And that's how a lot of people just brought that with them when they came here to build a tank. Now, like I said, I don't know if they don't want people to play DPS tanks, because if they do, it's going to create that syndrome like Guild Wars 2 had, where everyone's going to require it, and then they're going to force it on the rest of the community so bad that nobody's going to group with anybody if they're not playing a tank that does super damage. But you can make a tank that does do damage. That is up to you. The reason why I know this is because our characters have the capability to play any of the roles within the game at any given time. As long as you have the ability to do so, you can do it. It doesn't matter. Like, it doesn't matter if you're full DPS. As long as you have the ability to mitigate a lot of damage and to keep the enemies off your allies, as the game rules state, you can tank. So in all reality, in the game, when you create a character, you choose a race and a class. That's it. Your character can tank, heal, and DPS. It's all dependent on how you choose to build your character. Now, when it comes to organized group play, when it comes to Dungeons and Trials, or even PvP, you want your character to be well-rounded. You want them to be capable of doing a lot of different things. And the reason why is because the more you can offer your group, the more effective your character becomes. It doesn't mean that your character is going to be like the best character. It just means that the more you can bring to the table, the more you offer your group, the more effective your group becomes. Like Wooleray's tank build, if you guys haven't seen it, this guy is like, I don't know, the best way I can explain it is like, there is a phrase that I like to use. It's what Yoda says: do or do not, there is no try. When it comes to his build, it's a do or do not, there is no try kind of build. You either play that build the way it's intended to be played, or you don't play it at all. The reason why is because he built it to be that way. And with that tank build of his tank actually does all three roles. He just doesn't realize it. His tank does tank, heal, and DPS all at the same time. It's just that he's not specialized in doing damage. His character still applies damage, so therefore he does damage. He does a heal by using Vigor, so therefore he is a healer. He uses a buff for the group, which is Warhorn, which is not a protection ability which is required of a healer. It's a support ability that anyone can have access to. So he does a lot of different things with his build, and it brings a lot to the table. But if he altered his build just enough to give it some greater damage capabilities, and I'm not saying this is what he has to do, but if he offered it some greater damage capabilities and required his group to use more people to use Warhorn so they can keep it in a greater rotation, the organization of his group would come together better to where they could actually keep the Warhorn in such rotation that everybody in the group would have Warhorn on them just in case they needed it. And then you could keep a constant rotation of it up while doing DPS, while healing the group, and doing everything else. And the only reason why I know that is because the game rules allow it. But you have to make a build that does it. Now, his build is already sound enough. He doesn't need to change it. It works as intended. And just like everyone else's tank build works as intended, it's just a matter of what you choose your tank needs to have. Now, in reality, in this game, can you tank in light armor? Yes, the game allows it, therefore you can. Is it going to have the same kind of resistances as heavy armor? No. And you have to compensate for that loss. And a lot of builds is just that. A lot of builds are just them compensating for different things. Like, if you look at all the tank builds, they're very similar. They all run Sword and Board right now. They all run Warhorn and Vigor. They all run with different skills that give them the protections they need, along with some other skills that gives them some other protections. But they always run with some kind of support, heal, tank capabilities. It's like a jack of all trades, but they're only a master of one. Their character is a master tank, because they're specialized at tanking by mitigating damage and keeping the enemy off their allies. And they do a lot of debuffs and stuff depending on the build, and that's good. But everyone has access to those same abilities. So technically, you could put together a group of characters to play through the game, and all you'd have to do is play them as in the game intends. As long as you work within the rules of the game, you can make a character that does all three roles at the same time. You could be a character that is a tank, a healer, and DPS. But you would have to only be a master of one, because you can only do the other ones so well. Now, if you focused on doing DPS and tanking, you're going to be good at it, but you're not going to be great at it. And the reason why is because you have to do both. You have to compensate for the loss of one thing to make the other one work. So when you play a tank and you do DPS on top of it, your character can't use abilities to do damage. You use light and heavy attacks to do damage, but you use other abilities to mitigate damage. You use other things for your group support if you want to. That right there is optional. Group support, debuffs, those things are optional to what a tank needs to do. All a tank needs to do is mitigate damage and taunt the enemies. And that's how they keep the enemies off their allies. You can also use debuffs to do that as well, by slowing the enemies. Well, everyone can do that. Everyone does it, they just don't realize it. A lot of times people don't realize that their character has debuffs built into their skill. They also have buffs that are built in the skill. They're minor buffs, major buffs, that kind of thing. And so your character technically does play all three roles at any given time. It's just you're specialized in one and you're not so good in the other ones. Even if you don't have a heal, but you offer the group some kind of protection, or you offer the group some kind of a buff or something like that, you're still considered a support character because you're supporting your group. Who's the best support character in the game? There is no best support character because we can all do it. Who's the best healer in the game? Somebody dedicated to that role. But you don't have to be so dedicated to that role that you don't do anything else. And that's all I've been trying to say since the beginning when I talk about my builds, is you have the ability and the flexibility with this game to create a character of in any fashion. There I go, stuttering again. In any fashion, to make it work within the confines of the rules of the game. Well, the rules are clearly stated. You choose a race, you choose a class, your class can do any of the three roles at any given time. As long as you have the ability to specialize into that role is what defines your character more towards that role. And that's it. And you can make a dedicated tank. Anyone can. Anyone can make a dedicated DPS. Anyone can make a dedicated healer. But you're also doing the other roles regardless of the situation. If you're a healer, most of the time you're doing healing and deep damage on top of it. Anytime that you're playing DPS, you're doing damage, plus you're doing some support. The same thing goes, or you're doing tanking or healing, it doesn't matter. As long as you're doing what the game tells you can do, you're doing it. So that's one of the misconceptions a lot of people have with this game, is that you can't do other roles. Your character's locked in one, when in fact your character is doing multiple roles because the game allows it. This game shares a lot of similarities to Guild Wars 2. And I just brought that knowledge with me when I came here, and I knew that the game had that capability as soon as I saw we could use any armor. We could use any weapon. We could play our character in any way. And then they said, it clearly states when you hit P, that the only places that the tank healer DPS requirement is in a dungeon. The rest of the time it's not required. It is only required in a dungeon and a trial. That's because in PvP, you don't play tank, healers, and DPS. You play just a character, and that character is everything. So when you're in PvP, it's a lot different. Same thing goes with open world. In the open world PvE environment, your character is everything. Your character is like a jack of all trades and a master of one. Or a jack of all trades and a master of none. It all depends on how you put together the character. Now, is it good to use the builds of other people? It can be. Right now, we just don't have enough builds circulating in the game that offer more variety to the people who don't understand the game. And that's the way I treat builds. I mean, it was something that Killer Mech said to me the other day. You got to treat a build like it's a tool to teach people to understand the game. And if they want to use it, they can continue to use it. But if there's something about it they don't like or doesn't work for them, they can change it to make it work for them. And he's right. You can. And he's 100% right on what a build is. A build is just a rule or a guideline that somebody's offering you on one way to play the game. But there's hundreds of thousands of ways to play the game. In fact, I know there's a million ways to play the game because somebody already did the math. Because they just took everything and calculated it into a mathematical formula and came up with all these different things. And they're like, when you see that, you don't really think about it at first. But you got to think, each class can play all three roles. Each class can play all three roles in any armor type. Each class can play all three roles with any weapon type. Each class can play all three roles. And then you have 4 classes. We'll have 5 soon. And then depending on what race you are, what class you are, what gear sets you're using, and all that kind of stuff, you have to take all that into calculation too. There's a lot of different ways to play this game. Now I'm going to say something that a lot of people might misinterpret. Because of the way the game works, in the end, when everyone's at max level, when everyone has max champion points, when everyone has the access to everything in the game, we are literally equal in every aspect. The only thing that makes us different is our build. When it comes to the quality of gear, we all can get legendary. When it comes to the quality of the glyphs, we all get gold glyphs. When it comes to, the weapons that we choose, the gear we choose, the gear sets we choose, they're all going to be of the same value. It's just the value of the numbers is going to be different. And the value of our builds is going to be different. It doesn't mean we don't bring anything to the table when it comes to our role. It just means that we play the game a different way. So in reality, if you want me to be straightforward with you, there is no one build that is better than the other because we're all equal in the end. The only thing that makes us better at the game technically is the way we play our character and how well we know the game. Because the numbers don't really matter. It's how well you understand the game and how well you play that makes the difference. Now, I know what you're going to say, but this build is better than this build because it does more damage. That build might do more damage, but that doesn't matter. Because does the other build work? And is it effective? Does it do what it's intended to do? Yes. So therefore, it is equal. It doesn't matter, like you said, the damage. It doesn't matter how well or how perfect that build is. It can only be as perfect as the game allows. And the game allows all the builds to be just as perfect. So therefore, there is no one build that is better than another. It is all based on the interpretation of the player. And what they feel is right and wrong. Or what they feel is best and what is not best. But the person in control of that build will feel whether or not it's best for them to play it. Even if it's something that is a DP or a support character that does very little damage and does nothing but support. If they bring what they do to the table for what their role is, and it does as intended, it works. And therefore, it's just as good as anyone else's. Because it's using the same quality of gear. It's using the same quality of glyphs. It's just built differently. And that's the truth of it. I'm not misleading you. It is the honest truth of it. Because we don't have a way of making our characters more superior than any one other character, It's just our builds that make us different. Now, a build can be superior to another. That's guaranteed. But it doesn't mean that it's better. It just means that it's superior to that build. It doesn't mean that this other build doesn't work as intended, kind of thing. And I just wanted to clarify that so people understood that, yes, there's going to be people that are going to play builds that might not fit with your play style. But you have to compensate for that loss or that difference. And a lot of times you don't even really need to compensate. You just have to grow accustomed to playing with that play style. And it shouldn't take a long time if you get used to playing with different people. You can grow accustomed to a play style in a heartbeat. Especially if you just pay attention to the way they play, you can grow accustomed to it. And that's why we have the choices we do in these games, like to play with who we want and all that kind of stuff. It's not that we have to play with these top players or we have to play with these people over here. And that's why I don't use titles when I talk about different people. I don't like to. Because to me, we're all the same. We're all gamers. We're all we're all here doing the same thing. We all have our flaws, yes. We all have our disadvantages like I do with tremors, and I know there's other people out there that have disabilities and other things that cause them not to be as good a player, but it doesn't stop them from playing the game. In fact, it encourages them to play the game and to become better with their disability at playing the game. And I think that it's a good thing that people do that. And it's a good thing that we accept people no matter who they are and the way they play. If we accept them, guess what? We can all eventually get along and make the game a better place. But and I understand we all have a difference of opinion. I do. But it's just part of the game. And it's just like it's part of society. You have to deal with it. You have to deal with it here too. Is everyone going to get along? No. Why? Because we're all different. And the same thing goes with our builds. Our builds are not all going to get along because they're all different. Because everyone plays the game differently. And that's all I really wanted to talk about in this video, guys. Again, a major shout out to Delty and Woolery for their amazing video, and to all the other YouTubers out there doing a fantastic job on the web of bringing videos to the public and allowing the public to see what you have to offer. I think that is fantastic, and keep up the good work. So other than that, guys, if you guys enjoyed this video, please hit the like button. It'd be greatly appreciated. If you want to see more videos by me, you can hit the subscribe button. I try to post videos on a daily basis, but of course, I'm not a miracle worker and I can't make it always happen. I try to do my best. But other than that, that's it for now. Excuse me, I had a little bit of phlegm build up. But that's it for now. I'll just let you guys go.